Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to not only to a new year, but to the Great Lakes Health radio program on Power 96.5 FM and WUFO AM. I'm your host, Francesca Messiah from Kaleida Health, Manager of Workforce Development. And as always, and I do mean it from the bottom of my heart, thank you for stopping me in the community, letting me know that you're listening to the program, or letting your friends know that you listen to the program. It gives me energy. And also, if there's a program that you would like to hear, please let me know. And I know I've said this before, we've not had a program on orthopedics, but I promise we are going to have a program on knees or hips coming soon. Thank you. Well, today, before I get into who is Kaleida, our focus is going to be, we'll be talking about a new program at UB Medical School. If you notice, we have had a few programs about UB Medical School because the medical school, the students in the medical school are a part of our community, and they're located in the middle of the community. So I just want to let you know, today's program will be talking about a new program called Community Connect at the medical school. But first, who is Kaleida Health? We are the hospitals. We're Buffalo General Medical Center, Oishei Children's Hospital, Gates Vascular Institute, Millard Fillmore Suburban Hospital, the VNA, also known as the Visiting Nursing Association, DeGraff Medical Park. We also have two long-term care facilities, and that is one at DeGraff, that's in North Tonawanda, and also at the corner of High and Michigan, called High Point. We have clinics located throughout Erie County. We have clinics for adults. We have clinics for children. We have one of our children's clinics is located for children, pediatric. There's one on Broadway. There's also another one on Elmwood. We have clinics for women. We have clinics for women who are expecting babies. And we also have we also have clinics within some of the Buffalo public schools. And I also want to mention that all of our hospitals and our clinics are all located on bus lines. So if your car isn't working, or if it's too cold for a motorcycle, we do have the NFT bus does stop in front of our hospitals as well as our clinics. If you're interested in visiting and hearing some of our past programs, please visit www.kaleidahealth.org/videos. That's www.kaleidahealth.org/videos. And that's for past programs. And remember, you can utilize our programs for your school group, your church group, for senior activities, any activities, or if you just want to listen, because everybody on our show, as part of the Great Lakes Health, are all professionals. And also, one more reminder, Kaleida Health is also available for outreach, speaking engagements. If you have a group of individuals you want to hear about careers and healthcare, we have a great PowerPoint presentation on Kaleida Health. Come grow with us. To have any of those questions answered, if you have any questions, please give me a call at 716-863-8717. Send a text to 716-863-8717. Okay, on with our show. Our show for today, the topic is UB Medical School, Community Connect. Community Connect is a brand new program for the medical students. And to talk to us about this is Dr. Sengupta. Good morning, Dr. Sengupta.
Morning, Fran. Thanks so much for having us.
Oh, you're welcome. Dr. Sengupta is a Director of Learning Communities, Associate Professor of Psychiatry and Pediatrics at the UB Jacobs School of Medicine and Biomedicine Science. And also our guest for today is Dr. Michael Lamb. Good morning, Dr. Lamb. How are you?
Good morning, Fran. I'm doing great. What a pleasure to be here.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for being our guest. And Dr. Lamb is a director of surgical education, research assistant professor, Department of Surgery for UB Jacobs School of Medicine and Biomedical Science. Did I get both of your titles correct?
You got it great.
Perfect.
Did I? Okay. So first question. Is UB Community Connect, is it a new program for medical students? But most importantly, what makes Community Connect unique?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for the question, Fran. And I'm happy to be talking to you today from a Kaleida clinic, from the Children's Psychiatry Clinic at Oishei. And just like you pointed out, our medical students, our clinics, we're a part of this community in Western New York. And it's a wonderful community to be a part of. But one of the things that we know is that we have some work to do in terms of, better connecting with and understanding the needs, the challenges of our neighbors, in Buffalo and all throughout Western New York. And so the goal of Community Connect is to find some more ways to create some real connection between our medical students from the first moments they step into Jacobs, into the medical school, and throughout their time in medical school, so that we're graduating physicians that have a real sense of understanding, hey, what's going on in my community? How can I really connect with the folks I'm serving? Who are the community organizations that are doing amazing work in my community? What are some ways that I can ally with them to really understand, what are the concerns that the community have? What might be my role as a physician to be a part of some of that work? Not that as physicians, we need to be at the center of that, of course not, but to be good allies, to be good neighbors, and to have a sense of, for example, how bigger community issues, public transportation, food deserts, what's going on with weather, that these are actually also public health and health issues as well. And that we want our graduating medical students, as they go on to many of them becoming the physician workforce of Western New York, we want them to have a sense that, not only are they a part of the community, that they can make a difference in the community.
Mm-hmm. And I have to say on that note, Buffalo community isn't that unique to many of the communities. We hope that the students stay here. So if they stay here, they'll have a better understanding of Buffalo. But I just think it's great how all the new programs that are coming through the medical school, working along with the students, working along with community. Because I don't know, I guess I feel that what you're preparing them for is to go into whatever community that they will be going into, and bringing the same type of awareness with them.
Absolutely.
And wanting to get involved. What are the goals of Community Connect?
So it's at its core, it's a service learning program where we're going to connect all of our incoming, new, and future medical students with community-based organizations in Buffalo and in Western New York that are working with communities overcoming barriers, and really trying to help students understand, okay, how do you understand what's going on in a community? How do you connect with community members that are, going through different, sorts of challenges? Or, how do we just understand the strengths of community members in a community? And then they'll be spending just regular time in their schedules connecting with and working with these community-based organizations. So this is, just as they're going to be in class to learn about, heart disease, and they're going to be in, going to, rotations in a clinic to understand how to do a physical exam, they're also going to be spending time with community-based organizations to learn what we think are also really critical skills for new physicians as well. So we're really thrilled that the medical school has, in our new upcoming curriculum, the Well Beyond curriculum that's launching in July of 2024, really understood the importance of medical students connecting with community-based organizations and making that a part of their regular week. going out there with a team of other students, understanding what's going on there and seeing how they can be a part of the work that the community-based organization is doing, really being ambassadors for health in the community, and also bringing some of that knowledge from the community back into Jacobs. So that we can understand better, what are the experiences of folks, living in our communities? What are some real knowledge and expertise and excellent ideas they have that we can learn from, better ways that we can organize ourselves to meet public health needs. So it's really meant to be a back and forth, a real exchange, a real discussion. And we're really basing it on these ideas around service learning.
Yeah, and also you talked about the patient going to different clinics. Well, I guess the one setting they're on your turf if they're at a clinic, and then if they're at the community base, and then as students are at the medical students are at the community based center, they're on their turf. So really, it's a circle. It's really come into my home. Well, come into my home, and then So I think that's a great way of. It's a great approach. Dr. Lamb, tell us a little more about service learning. The only reason I say, because I know at Health Sciences Charter School, which is down the street from the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus, they always talk about, not only do they talk about service learning, they do service learning. And I'm not always clear on what service learning is. So if you could share with us, what is service learning?
No, I appreciate you saying that. And actually the lack of clarity that you're describing, I think is part of the issue, and is one of the things that I think Community Connect is here to address and reckon with honestly. So, on one level, service learning is an effort to connect what happens in academia with what happens in communities. So you'd have students applying themselves in a curricular sort of 4-credit context to a community need, helping out communities. The question becomes more complicated when you start to ask, well, who defines the community need, right? Is it the community who defines it, or is it the educational institution? Exactly. Who determines whether this work is indeed helpful? Again, is that the community or is it the educational institution? And, is the work playing a role in enabling greater questions of unequal structures, or is it serving to prop up those unequal structures? And I think all of these are questions that we are going in well aware of. I worked for the City University of New York for 20 years and did a lot of service learning and witnessed a lot of service learning. And there is what I would describe as sort of superficial service learning, the kind you will often see on Facebook or Instagram, which are, students, waving in pictures with the supposedly served communities. And then there's a different kind, which is based on meaningful, authentic, longitudinal relationship, right? I mean, we call it Community Connect because we're interested in meaningful, long-term connections. And we're really putting our foot down and saying what interests us is being of genuine long-term use to our neighbors, to the communities we work with. I liked that you spoke about this kind of dynamic or dialectic. Come into my home and now I come into your home. That's one of the things that we've tried to do in the Department of Surgery, right? Doing free community foot care clinics in spaces that are trusted by the community to sort of set out from the clinical space a little bit. And so I think service learning at the highest level involves a deep interest in relationship and a deep interest in being present for others.
Yeah, and it's funny that thank you. And you talk about pictures with everybody waving. And I would say, I probably get it from my father, if you're taking a picture and everybody's waving and there's people in the community next to you, then nobody's working.
That's right.
You're working when you're taking a picture of someone, looking at the feet, giving a dental examination, you're working. But if everybody's waving, well, that means no one's working.
I think you're right. And I also think it means that maybe you are reducing these communities to an object for your own performance, right? You are using them in furtherance of a kind of ego performance, and that's what we're seeking to get away from in service learning.
Get away from, exactly. Along the line of CBOs, what would make a good fit between a CBO and Community Connect? Like, how do you know which CBOs? Because I thought that was very interesting when Dr. Sengupta, you sent me the information. I'm like, okay, well, there are a lot of CBOs. What makes a good fit?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, we have to just really pay, due credit to the amazing and wonderful community-based organizations all throughout Buffalo and Western New York. As we've been doing some of this exploration and relationship building, we're hearing and learning about such amazing work that our regional CBOs are engaged in. And I think one of the things that we're really looking for are organizations that are open to partnership and that are maybe open to this idea that we in the medical school can be neighbors with them. So I think one of them is this idea that there's some meaningful work that our students might be able to help them with. I do want to point out it doesn't have to be sort of classically just health-oriented work. We're really taking the idea of health very, very broadly. We're really sort of guided by this idea that many folks may have heard of, the social determinants of health, right? So, food, transportation, housing, care of vulnerable populations, any of that, outreach, is that type of work we're really interested in our students engaging in. It doesn't have to be just, clinical things, health-related things, because our sense is that many things are related to health. I think the other is just this idea that, we do want to create this longer term connection over time. And so we have sort of cleared out this space in their schedule, so to speak, to go out to communities. So we're also looking for organizations that can have a space for them to engage with the community, regularly over time. So we're thinking they're going to go out, at least twice a month, a couple hours each time, in teams of 3, and really kind of make those, actual connections that Dr. Lamb was talking about. One of the things we really sort of gotten a sense of is that, we understand each other as neighbors when we're next to each other, or we call it sort of proximity, where we have some real, closeness with each other. And so to do that, we want to, have a sense where they're able to engage, with the community. And I think the last is just this idea that, we'd love to be able to work with any organizations that, want to have perhaps some input or engagement with the medical school. If they want to explore some new area that, again, doesn't have to be exactly in health, but something related around health, and I'm hopeful that maybe our students could help them explore some of that. It doesn't have to be health related, but if that's something that is of interest with folks, we may be able to, make some, next steps forward. But I think the biggest thing is that we're looking to develop some relationships, and we're really open to any, community-based organizations that might be interested in developing some relationships with us.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm just going to put a plug in. I mean, having worked in community for most of my life, if you need any suggestions, I'll be more than happy offline following the
awesome, Brad. We're gonna pick your brain then. Thank you.
We're gonna give me some ideas. All right. So what's in this for the community organization? I think we've covered it a little bit, but why do we want medical students more engaged with the community? If you could elaborate, Dr. Lamb or Dr. Sengupta.
Well, I guess one thing that I would say, and please, Dr. Sengupta, jump in at any time. I think, I believe it was you who said something about decentering, right? And I do think we can in academia often think that all the best ideas come from our space, right? and that the idea is that we generate ideas in this building, and then we go forth and we implement the ideas on others, right? There's a great theologian, Martin Buber, who talks about this monologizing hubris, right? Which is the idea of just, I'm always engaged in my own monologue of telling others what it would be best for them to do. And, there's there's a lot of work to be done in terms of decentering and humility that's so important. And to be out with others, to be engaged in genuine listening with others, to learn how other organizations work, and sort of to not always be waiting to give your side of the story, but to really be patiently present with another organization as it does its thing. We used to embed with an NGO for a whole summer, and that was a very exciting period for all of us because,
What's
in
an NGO?
some sense, what's that?
What's an NGO?
Oh, a non-governmental organization. And so we used to go abroad every summer with students and work alongside a group. And what I found happens after the first couple days of such work is that everybody lets go of the superficial kind of mask presence, and you start to get a sense of who we really are as humans and what we want to be doing together. This is an opportunity for us to gain a ton of insight from communities in cooperation with communities. My hope is that this is one step on a lot of these physicians, long-term, career-long engagement with community organizations, engagement in active listening, engagement in being present in communities in a humble and decentered way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, I just have to ask real quick. Are the students out in the evenings? Because a lot of community work takes place in the evenings and on Saturdays.
It's a great question. I think in the beginning, we're really going to, focus on, sort of, if you will, it's an art of a compromise. It's not going to be, first thing, 8 a.m. in the morning. It may be, in the afternoon or the later afternoon. Also trying to make some compromises with, the realities of school schedules and calendars and those kinds of things. But we're really aware that, ultimately some of this is going to have to, flex into what's making sense, for the community-based organizations we're working with and the communities we're serving.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm sorry. Did I cut you off from the other question?
The one thing I just want to add in there too is that this idea that, so many of the physicians, that, become, a core part of our, really rich, tapestry of, healthcare workforce in this region, which is, it's an important, pillar of our community. We have the honor of training them at Jacobs at the medical school. And so I think this idea too, that, we want to, be able to graduate, cohorts of docs that have, been able to gain some of these skills that, Dr. Lamb was just talking about. I mean, just this idea of being culturally humble, understanding that, my first job is to seek to understand, what's going on with the person in front of me, the family or the community that they're a part of. And I think, we'll all benefit as a community if we can graduate docs, where that's kind of their first go-to strategy. And I think this is a type of program that can really help that to happen.
Yeah. So why would you then incorporate Community Connect into medical training for the new and future medical students? And how might this impact their training as future physicians?
Absolutely. I think there's really, again, we talked about this being, bidirectional. There's really something in this for everyone. I think for our medical students, this is a really just a remarkably engaged generation of learners coming in. They're very, dialed into all that's going on in the world and their community. And they want to be a part of, how do I, be a part of, difference making in that context. And I will say that I think, classic sort of traditional medical training sometimes can take us a little bit away from that. Hey, there's a lot of stuff that you have to learn. There's a lot of things you have to learn how to do. I want you to focus on that for the next 4, 8, 10 years. And I think one of the things we're really sort of saying to these incoming medical students is that, hey, there's actually a way to interweave these. You can learn to become an excellent, technically skilled, surgeon, physician, and also really develop this really wonderful tool set of, how to be a great humanistic doctor and a community engaged doctor.
All right. Yeah. At the end of Community Connect, or let's say the students are getting ready to, leave and move on to another semester, for for the physicians to have them as the patient and have the community group they're working with as the physician asking questions. One thing that's missing in the community members do not know what questions to ask physicians. They're always being told, write out your questions, but then many times when you see the physician, you then clam up. So to overcome that to me would also be a great stride, So not only is it the student learning, but it really is then the community coming back to that full circle and having the confidence for their health. What's in it? It's for their health. One is for, and it's everybody's working on the health. Anyway, I know we only have probably about less than a minute left. So what would you like, Dr. Lamb, what would you like for this, for our listeners to take away from this conversation?
Yeah, I really like that you talked about confidence, and I hope, and I would maybe connect the word confidence with the word trust. Our hope is that this can be the beginning of authentic, meaningful efforts in building trust that will lead to greater confidence and greater trust on both sides of the equation, at the community level and at the medical school level. And we're really delighted about this. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Dr. Sengupta, your last comments?
Again, Fran, I echo Dr. Lamb. Thanks so much for having us. Just a general outreach to our neighbors out there. And if you're a community-based organization that, thinks that this might be, something of interest, something where we might be able to work together and sort of improving our neighborly connection, as community members, and our sort of future healthcare workforce, please reach out. I'm at SOURAVSE@buffalo.edu and would love to chat with any community-based organizations out there that might have an interest in collaborating together. And we'd love to work with you.
Okay, thank you. And Lucy and Catherine, I'm throwing your names in the hat if you're listening. Well, I want to thank our guests. Thank you, Dr. Sengupta. And thank you, Dr. Lamb, for being our guest today on the Great Lakes Health, talking about Community Connect. And remember, if you're looking for a job, please Google Kaleida Health Careers and go on our website and apply. Thank you. And now on to part 2. Well, today our program, the topic is called Keeping Your Home Safe for Children, and we're going to talk a little bit about car seat safety, because I don't know about you, but sometimes those car seats can look pretty tricky to attach to your car. And our guest for today, who is not a stranger to the show, is Ben Casper. Good morning, Ben. How are you?
Good morning, Francesca. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Wonderful. And Ben is the injury prevention and outreach specialist. And that's his title. But what Ben does a lot. He does a lot in the community with childhood safety, including helmets. Matter of fact, I was just talking to Ben about Juneteenth, and if we can get some bike helmets under the Kaleida ECMC tent for Juneteenth. It's January, but we want to talk about that. But that's a separate conversation. So Ben, when it comes to children at home, at what age should adults be concerned about a child being in the house? Like, if they're a newborn, is there a reason to be concerned? Or if they're 12 years old, at what age should someone be concerned?
Well, yeah, definitely parents should have a heightened sense of awareness, at least. And that's, hopefully before the birthing process even takes place. And that's just by going ahead, getting education about safe sleep practices, about, the various different, obstacles that are in your house. Every house is a little bit different. If you have, swimming pools, if you have, multiple stairways, different things like that, it really gets broken down according to the age and in pretty much the development level of the child. When you don't have an ambulatory child, a child that's moving around as much when they're first born, that's the time to plan for that next step. And so it's just utilizing the resources that are available to you, reaching out to myself or other entities that are there to assist the public and family members. It's utilize the resources that are at your disposal. And there's the real tricky part is when they're they have kids have a great deal of physical ability, but don't necessarily understand the repercussions of their actions. And that's at that toddler to preschool stage, where they're little gymnasts, but you want to make sure that you can make sure that you're setting an appropriate and safe environment for them to get their energy out.
What is the most common home injury?
Well, probably the most common injury kind of across the board is going to be falls, because gravity seems to have a way of getting us most times. So it's a fairly broad category, but that could be anything from falling down several stairs, or being I guess even a drop from somebody's arms would be considered a fall. So just one of those things that you really want to make sure that you're doing. And I really try to disseminate this information to new caregivers, because they don't realize how sleep deprived they're going to be until they're faced with the situation of, only getting intermittent sleep throughout the night and the daytimes. Having a support system can help reduce, falls from, a caregiver's arms or something along that line. It's just one of those things that, and when it comes to stairways, baby gates are a wonderful thing. Sometimes the child-proof locks on them are sometimes adult-proof, but as soon as you're familiar with them, it's a very nice tool to know where your little one is, and to provide those safe spaces for them to play.
Yeah, and something that I just thought about when we're having this conversation. I know many of us watch those home remodeling shows, and one thing they never talk about is child safety. So if you're having remodeling done in your home, think about that. I mean, some of those new tubs that they're putting in homes are extremely deep, and sometimes they have like a little stool next to the tub for the adult to get in. But remember, kids are just little adults, and adults are just little kids. So just make sure, if you're having some remodeling done in your house, and you have a little person or even a grandchild coming in your house, that you keep that aware. That just popped in my mind. Where should one begin? Where, like, in terms of safety measures, what are some, let's say for the youngest age, because I don't know, at what age can children, besides dropping them, if you're holding them, thank goodness, hopefully you're not dropping them, but around at what age does that little brain start, and those little legs begin to say, what's this, what's that? So at what age do you begin to start putting like the plugs into the outlets and such?
Yeah, very good question. And it really depends on the child. It's when as soon as they start crawling and moving around, that's when their curiosity really sparks. And, no pun intended with outlets, but that's when they start to move around. They get curious. They want to put things in their mouth. They want to, see, touch, feel everything, because it's all relatively new to them, or it is new to them. So, as soon as they start having that ability with their mobile function, that's when, you're putting those different things like the cabinet locks on your doors. You're putting those little stoppers in the outlets. That's when you're putting up the baby gates. That's when you're trying to minimize any type of choking hazards or anything that's small enough to fit in their mouth. You want to make sure that, button batteries and toys that are utilize those can be very, very, very dangerous if ingested. So not to scare people, but just to heighten their awareness that those are the things that you really should be thinking about. And we always reference too, there's several different sites out there that have a lot of helpful information. We're the lead agency for Safe Kids Western New York, and we utilize a lot of their material. because it has various different household checklists and different things like that that makes it so you can kind of just go through and you can just check off the boxes just to make sure that you're doing your due diligence to provide a safe haven for your child.
And you know what? It just dawned upon me. We're talking about the house, but what about if you have a garage? And a lot of times I'm just thinking you can't put a lawnmower or you can't put that up. What should someone do if that, again, in safety proofing a garage? We always talk about a house, but if you have a garage or if your grandparents or if your parents have a garage, you may not have one, but some place where you're visiting with your child might have one. What are some of the things that a parent or caregiver should be made aware of if that child gets into the garage? How could you proof a garage?
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't think I've ever fielded that before, but let's just think about it, right? There's a lot of things that are in a garage that are hazardous for anybody. You have gasoline, oil, sharp landscaping equipment, cars, different things along that line. Fortunately enough, I would say all, or at least the majority of garages have either a garage door and or a door that's separating the garage from the other structures. And I would just say that keeping children out of that area, just because inherently you're going to have a lot of hazardous both chemicals and sharp objects and things like that. So I would say that keeping that as a place similar to around a stove in when you're cooking. Some people, including myself, we put down a little bit of an outline saying that this is a no enter zone. When my children were quite young, because they are curious, when we're cooking or we're doing things like that, we set boundaries, and we reward them for not going in those potentially hazardous areas. And I think the garage would be included in that.
Mm-hmm. And I also want to say, as televisions have become lighter and lighter and lighter, how can one protect their, we know how light these televisions are, and kids are strong. Again, kids are little people are little kids. So how could these little people, they can pull over a television set. What should someone do with the television set that might be sitting on a dresser or something?
Yeah, great question. So even though televisions are relatively lighter than they used to be, they're still quite heavy because they're making the screens so large, and they have a pretty high center of gravity, so they're easier to tip. And so there's furniture straps and television straps that you can incorporate, or wall mounting a television and keeping it out of reach. And that goes for dressers as well. But any of those structures that are quite heavy that, generally have a pretty high center of gravity are a tipping hazard. And especially if you have a little climber and, they're going to be in the room, having those attached to the wall, to a stud, preferably, is a very, very good, gives you a little bit more peace of mind. And it's a great initiative to take in the household for sure. And they're relatively inexpensive too.
Oh, there. Okay. All right. And I was going to say, you haven't been to my house. I still have those smaller flat screen TVs that I can pick up. So they're not heavy. So they're not larger. I haven't graduated to that size.
Well, 2024 is a new year for you, Francesca.
Okay.
Who knows?
Go out and buy. I need my glasses to watch TV. When a parent, I know we're talking about like childproofing. Is there a book, or is there a book with the information you're discussing, in case our listeners are saying, never thought of that, never thought of that? Is there an email or some way to that they can reach you with some of the information thus far we've been talking about on childproofing? Or even Google, Dr. Google, where to go?
Absolutely. Well, it's a great world that we live in because you have a tremendous amount of information at your fingertips. But you want to make sure that when you are researching, you're checking to make sure that have a certain level of validation from the website that you're on, and that's why going to websites like Safe Kids or Safe States or injury free coalitions, different things along that line. Those are great resources that are right at your fingertips that provide a tremendous amount of information. So I would encourage listeners to visit some of those sites. And if you're having difficulty navigating some of those sites, obviously you can feel free to reach out to myself or your local pediatric or social services organization, and they'd be happy to, or I would be happy to point you in the right direction and field any questions they may have.
Okay. Falls. We've talked a couple of times about falls, and I know one thing that I've noticed. I know sometimes, like I watch adults pick up a baby, and sometimes their arthritis kicks in. And they'll say to someone, grab the baby. So those are just some things to also consider. But if that child falls, if they fall out of your hands, fall down the stairs? If they fall, what is the first thing? Should they try and do something themselves, or should they carry the child to the hospital? Should they call an ambulance? What's the first thing you should do if your child falls? What should an adult or caregiver look out for?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, it depends on the level of familiarity that somebody has with injuries and things along that line. If there is a lack thereof, which is perfectly fine. Everybody has strengths and, areas of, has gaps in knowledge. When in doubt, calling if it's not something that's very significant, but you want a medical professional's opinion, you can always call the non-emergency line on in your township or your city to have an evaluation, have an ambulance come. If it's something that where your child maybe got knocked out or you see a fair amount of blood, or you see an arm that didn't look like it did, or something like that, pre-fall. Well, then, notifying the emergency department or getting them to like Oishei Children's Hospital, which is a level 1 pediatric trauma center serving our community up to the age of 19 for traumatic falls, which is the highest level of verification that you can receive. That's where we're happy to see people. We're happy to, provide that service in the community. Our catchment area is all of the 8 counties in the Western New York region. And we work collaboratively with our EMS partnerships. And so they can even go in when they do come for an evaluation, they can call and talk to an emergency department doctor and, run the scenario by them to see if they feel as though, treatment at a trauma center and at a pediatric center is recommended. So, we're really we're there for the community. I would hate to discourage somebody from ever seeking assistance. So, if when in doubt, calling and making sure that everything is okay, coming into Oishei Children's Hospital, we're happy to see everybody. And that's always the best thing, because sometimes, especially when we talk about certain head injuries, where we'll see somebody where, you have an adventurous, 3 or 5 year old that falls and they, bonk their head and but then they start not acting quite right. Those are some signs that, to get immediate care, because we can provide those treatments for those different types of patterns for sure.
Mm-hmm. And when you talk about that, I know, okay, you just made me think of a concussion. If someone has a concussion, can they still walk around, or does a concussion mean you're not, you're unresponsive?
It can vary. So there's a lot of things that kind of go around concussions, and then there can be worse things than concussions as well. But people have very different symptoms based on the degree of the injury.
And I'm thinking about a fall. So I'm again talking about a fall in a household. A concussion does not mean that does not have to mean you're on a football field. I just want to make sure our listeners understand you can get a concussion falling in. A 3-year-old can get a concussion, right? Falling in their house.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Nobody's necessarily, no age group is safe from having a head injury by any means. And, some things to look out for is, if somebody's all of a sudden tired, if somebody's really irritable for no apparent reason, if somebody's vomiting, if somebody starts shaking uncontrollably and you can't necessarily get a response out of them. Those are some signs and symptoms of a head injury, which could be a concussion. It could be something that's worse. It's always good to just get evaluated. We have imaging that can determine kind of like the severity of that injury. And but yeah, if something doesn't seem right, and I always lean on the maternal instinct. My wife, I swear, she knows when something's wrong with our kiddos, before you'd even see something, before anybody else. That maternal instinct is a remarkable thing, and they just know like something isn't right. And if that's the case, getting an evaluation is highly recommended. So,
and for you dads out there, even though we use the word maternal, it can be you as well. So it doesn't have to be the woman or the mom who notices it.
Oh,
absolutely. Get them to the hospital or an urgent care, or if you can reach their pediatrics office, don't say, well, they'll be okay. No, just stop, because those head injuries are very serious. Anything else you want to add to any other thoughts on that before I move on?
Well, just one thing, and it actually just something that you sparked was the talk to the pediatrician. So that's one of those things where if you're like, oh, okay, my kiddo looks like they're doing okay, I want to run something by somebody, I don't want to necessarily call an ambulance because it doesn't seem like that. That's when that perfect time to call your pediatrician's office and then ask for their guidance. And they can appropriately say like, oh, wait, let's have them come into the office and we can evaluate. Or it's like, based on what you're telling me, I would have them go to go to Oishei and be evaluated in the emergency department. So thank you for.
No, you're welcome. And not having children. So if that child falls at 11:00 p.m. and they'll get, they may not get the office right away. Should they wait for the answering service to contact the pediatrician, or just get to the hospital?
It's one of those things, especially when we're talking about head injuries. That's not a time to necessarily wait, because then, it's very difficult to determine too. It's like, is my baby or child, are they sleeping or are they unconscious? Are they unable to be, aroused, like by just, a quick little touch or by, saying their name? So you don't want an injury to kind of brew overnight. So that would be a time to definitely get evaluated.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, we do have a little bit of time remaining. Car seats, car safety, and I know, Ben, you are responsible, or you partner with, or you collaborate with other organizations on car seat safety. How tricky is it getting? And again, I don't have children. I love them, but I don't have any, or grandchildren, don't have any. How tricky is it still to get that car seat in your new, either your 2023 or 2022? How difficult is it to attach the car seat properly in the back seat of your car?
Yeah, that's a good question. It really it all depends. It's like everything else. Car seats and the manufacturers of vehicles are constantly changing things. So I tell you that over half of all car seats that are installed incorrectly. Some of them just a mild tweak that needs to be done. But the best thing to do is to contact a child passenger safety technician. We have over a dozen on staff here at Oishei Children's Hospital at various times. We work in partnership with a lot of different organizations that also provide that service. We're a great point of contact, though, to even if you're not directly in the Buffalo city area. We're actually I'm the Governor of Traffic Safety. I'm on the advisory board for our region, which is Region 1, covering Western New York. And I have access to all of the child passenger safety technicians in our coverage area there. And, I'd be happy to link people up, or they could just reach out if it's just a generalized question. But, for everything, it's always it's forever changing. And, that's why we, you always want to talk to the people that are in tune with all the changes as they happen.
Mm-hmm. Now, the question I'm writing notes on my paper, and I have, what is your number? What is your contact information? And if you could say it twice and slowly.
Absolutely. So at the office, it's area code 716-323-2624. Again, that's area code 716-323-2624. And then also my email address is bkasper. So it's B as in Benjamin. Kasper starts with a K. So BKAS, E as in Peter, ER, the number 1 at kaleidahealth.org. So that's bkasper1 at kaleidahealth.org. And I'd be happy to assist anybody with any questions that they might have.
Is there any one thing or two things in particular that you say sometimes that, with a car seat, it just takes a tweak? Is there something that you can identify and share with the listeners that most often gets overlooked when installing a car seat?
Yeah, there's a couple of common themes, whether it be just it's too loose, so it's not secured tight enough. The one thing that I really emphasize, especially with new parents, with the 0 to 4 month old children, that's when they don't really have that muscle support in the neck. So the recline angle, the angle in which it's installed, it's generally adjustable, and you want to make sure that it's at the appropriate level, because that could cause an airway problem. And it could affect their the child's way to breathe. The other thing that really kind of pops up as well is people feel as though it's a graduation to switch from rear facing to forward facing. But actually, when you switch to a forward facing position, and if you're involved with a front end collision, it's a less safe method. So general rule of thumb is you want to keep your child rear facing in that seat until they exceed the height and weight limits of that seat. So those are probably two of the common things that we generally address.
Do children still have to sit in the booster seats, like after they graduate from a car seat? Do they still have to do that?
Yeah, so when they switch over to booster seats, you generally have to be at least like 4 years old and at least 40 pounds. But, the stickers on the side of all these seats are beneficial. And, you might be in a booster seat in one vehicle that you have, but you might be in a car seat in the other. It just depends on the size of that child in comparison to the seat in which they're in. Their knees should go past the seat itself. Their feet should be able to lay flat, and the shoulder straps should be able to go over their shoulder, not their neck or anything along that line. So it kind of varies depending on the size of the child and the vehicle in which they're in.
Mm-hmm. And I would also say that make sure your child can't get out of their own car seat.
Yes, and the developmental thing when it comes to that is because they're curious, but you have to make sure that they're able to maintain and not be a little escape artists, little Houdinis out there.
Yeah.
And if they are, you can actually get a lot of the manufacturers, or some of them at least, they have ways you can kind of secure them into the seat with like some type of a locking mechanism. So, and it all depends. Every child's a little bit different, and every seat's a little different.
Thank you. Well, Ben, I just want to summarize for our listeners what we've talked about today with Ben Casper, injury prevention and outreach specialist. We've talked about home safety, keeping your child safe from the time they begin moving around. What is it? 4 months or so? I don't know but when they start crawling and able to and be curious. We've talked about safety in the home, safety in the bathroom with bathtubs. We've talked about child safety in the garage. And we've also talked about if the child falls, and we've talked about proper installation of car seats. And Ben, your phone number one more time?
It's going to be 716-323-2624.
Ben, I want to thank you for being our guest this morning on the Great Lakes Health radio program. I'm your host, Francesca Messiah from Kaleida Health, Manager of Workforce Development. And also, I want to remind our listeners, if you're interested in growing your career, changing your career, please visit our Kaleida Health website and look for careers or jobs. We have thousands available. Again, Ben, thank you. And next week, you'll hear from my esteemed colleague at ECMC, that's Cindy Bass. And God be willing, you'll hear my voice in 2 weeks. Take care, listeners. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.